Hi, I hope you guys had a good weekend and are ready for today's lesson. The first thing I want you to do, make sure you check your homework on pages 22 and 23. The third quarter is going to be ending very, very soon, so if any of you would like to do an optional IXL assignment to replace any missed homework or a missed IXL assignment, or to improve any type of low quiz grade, you can. I need 1 hour of IXL done by this Friday if you choose to do the assignment. I already took and highlighted the topics on IXL, so just make sure you're working on those. Today we're going to take and practice quadratic linear word problems graphically again. So open up to page 25 so that we could get started. On page 25, question number 5, this question is talking about a company considering building a manufacturing plant. They determine the weekly production cost of site A to be A of x equals 3x squared. Now the first thing that you do need to realize is that since this has an x squared in it, this is going to be a parabola, while the other one, site B, B of x, which is B of x equals 8x plus 3, is going to be a line. Again, we know that it's a line because it's x to the first power, where x represents the number of products in hundreds. And A of x and B of x are going to be the production cost in hundreds of dollars. They want you to take and graph the production cost. Now in this case, they already labeled the graph for you, so you don't have to worry about making a scale. You do still always have to make a table of values, so you'll want to make a table for A of x equals 3x squared. And then you're also going to take and need a table for B of x equals 8x plus 3. Now, in this case, if you look at the graph paper, it is only a first quadrant graph. Since the graph is only in the first quadrant, you need to make sure that you always start your x value at 0 and 0. Now, if you have a positive 3x squared, you should realize that this parabola will be opening upward, and it may only be a partial parabola because it's in the first quadrant. You need to make a table of values where x goes up to 4. You know you can stop at 4 because that is going to be the largest x value that they listed on the graph paper. So on your tables, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, because again, your largest x value is going to be 4. Pause the video now and fill in your table of values and graph them. Now that you have both graphs drawn, there's a few things I need for you to notice. Once you fill in your table, and again, you know that your table should be stopping at 4 because that is the largest value on your x-axis. They did label the scale for you, but you do need to be aware that if this is 0 and this is 10, that each box is going to be 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So make sure you realize that when you're plotting your points, that each one is going up by 2. Once you have everything graphed, don't forget to label with A of x equals and B of x equals. Again, back by the equations, you should realize that since A of x has an x squared, it's a parabola, and since B of x has x to the first power, it's going to be a line. We should have also gotten the solutions from the calculator before we even started this question, just to make sure that we graphed it correctly. So if you do go to your calculator and type in y1 equals y2 equals second trace intersect, you're going to see then that the solution is 3, 27. So once I took and I graphed both the parabola and the line, I would see that my intersection point is at 327. I can also look at my table and realize that that is my intersection point, therefore I graphed it correctly. Now there are 2 questions that go along with this. The first question is asking you to state the positive values for x. In this case, we only graphed in the first quadrant, so it is all positive values for which the production of the two sites are equal to each other. That means, where do they intersect? So they're looking for the intersection point on the graph, and they're asking you to explain, meaning you have to take and write down the sentence. Now, the intersection point on the graph, or looking at your table, was 3, 27. Keep in mind, they only want you to list the x value. So be sure then to take and write down x is equal to 3. You cannot just leave 3, 27. Explain how you determine your answer. You would need to take and write a sentence explaining that you looked at the graph where they intersect each other, and you specifically wrote down just the x value for it. For the second part of the question, it says, if the company plans to manufacture 200 products per week, which site should they use? Now, this was a very tricky question because some people decided to take 200 and plug it into the equation, and that is not what they're looking for. The question itself is italicized where it says production in hundreds, meaning 200 means x equals 2. So if you look at your table where x equals 2, you're going to see that company A, when x equals 2, is going to be 12 or 1200 according to the question, and company B, when x equals 2, it cost 19 or 1900. So if the question is asking you which site should they use, they're asking which would be the cheaper site. A of x is cheaper since that is going to be 1200 as opposed to B of x, which is 1900. So that's what you needed to do for your part B and C on question number 5. Okay. Let's go on to the next page. And on page 26, question number 6 is giving you both f of x, which is a parabola, because it has an x squared, and it's giving you g of x, which is a line, because it's x to the first power. They want you to take and graph y equals f of x, which just means to graph the parabola, and g of x, which means to just graph the line. So the same as before, first thing you need to do is actually get the answers or the solutions from your calculator before you start. So on your calculator, you should be doing y1 equals, y2 equals, second trace intersect, and get your solutions, which turn out to be -2, -8, and 1, -2. Once you write down the solutions, now you're going to take and graph both the parabola and the line. If the parabola and the line do not intersect at -2, -8, and 1, -2, it means that you made a mistake, so you're going to go back and recheck your graph. Now for this, it's a 4-quadrant graph, meaning you will be graphing an entire parabola and an entire line. Pause your video now and graph both the parabola and the line. Be sure to label and put arrows on the end. Once you graph the parabola and the line, be sure to label both with g of x and f of x, and make sure you have arrows on the end of them. Now, on the parabola, -3, -18, and 3, -18 does not fit on the graph paper, so those you will not be plotting. Now, as far as the solutions, that's going to be where the parabola and the line intersect, which in this case turns out to be -2, -8, and 1, -2. You can also look at your table and notice you have 1, -2 on both of your tables. You also have -2, -8 on both of your tables. Now the question on the bottom, using the graph, determine and state all values of x. So again, they only want you to find the x values when f of x equals g of x, meaning when do they intersect? Do they intersect? So in order to show work on this, take and write down your actual solutions first, which are -2, -8, and 1, -2. Keeping in mind that they only want the x values underneath each, put down x equals -2 and x equals 1. That's what you would have to show in order to get full credit. Go on to page 27. On page 27, question number 7, this is